Hello, world. It's Carole from Viva Vacation, and we're back today with another podcast. I welcome back my husband, Bernie. Say hello, Bernie.
Hello.
We just come back from a vacation, a wonderful vacation in Portugal, and that will be the theme of our podcast today. So, before I get started, I will explain the kind of the summary of our trips, just so you know what we did. And then we'll talk about it more in details as to what we liked and the experiences that we had. So essentially, we spent 9, 10 days in Portugal. We landed in Lisbon, did 3 days there, then took the train to the south of Portugal in the Algarve region. We stayed in Albufeira. We did another 3 days there, and then headed north to Porto and finished our trip there for another 3 days. So I'll before we even get started into the details, I will provide just a little bit of history about Portugal because I am a history buff. Portugal is the oldest nation state in Europe. It was founded in 1143, and it's maintained its original borders since the mid 13th century. And in Europe, Portugal is the westernmost point. I guess it's the country that is more west. Portugal is famous for their port wine, their tiles, the cork, the famous pastry called pastel de nata, their fado music, its beaches, and its football, especially the famous Cristiano Ronaldo, CR7. Portugal is a world leader in renewable energy, and they were actually the first country to adopt the euro. While we were in Portugal, we learned that the country had two famous years, if you will. The first one is 1755, which is oddly the same year as the Acadians were deported. But in Portugal, they had a devastating earthquake that destroyed a lot of their country, and a lot of people died. So they still talk about that year as being very a date that marks them, if you will. And the other famous year for them is 1910 when they became a republic. So, Bernie, we're going to start with Lisbon because this was our first stop, which is the capital of Portugal. They call it Lisboa. It means an enchanting port, and it is actually a city that's older than Rome. So, talk to me a little bit about Lisbon, Bernie.
Sure. Yeah, I really liked Lisbon. I think we both did. Lisbon is a kind of a good blend of a modern European city with great, shopping, cafes, restaurants, sort of all the amenities, high-tech sections, modern sections. But it also has that old world charm where there's little sort of alleyways and cobblestones. And I think we both really admired all the cobblestone work. It's really quite an art, and there's real artisans who work every day in making sure that the cobblestones are up to date and well maintained throughout the city. You see these guys with trucks, and they pull up and they take out these little square white or black stones, and they kind of clean everything up and put them back in the sidewalk sort of thing. So it really has that neat vibe. But it's very touristy and very geared towards tourists in the main section where we spent most of our time. But beautiful city, kind of a nice kind of valley with three sections before the big bay, and great sort of viewpoints at the top of each of those top of the valleys. So yeah, a beautiful city. Very nice city, nice people, easy to get around, felt safe. Yeah, nothing really bad to say at all about Lisbon. It was top notch.
Yeah. Just to give you a perspective, the population in the metro area of Lisbon is about 3 million, so a very large European city. But like Bernie said, we felt safe and it it didn't feel overwhelming, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
the city does have one of Europe's longest bridge. It's called the Vasco da Gama Bridge, which is 17.2 kilometers. And just in perspective, the Confederation Bridge is 8.9. So quite a very, very long bridge. The city is also known for their tram systems, similar to San Francisco, but when we were there, all the trams, the system of trams were closed because a few weeks before we arrived, there was a deadly accident that resulted in 16 deaths. And I think there were two or three Canadians amongst
Yeah.
those. So very sad to see that, and you could feel it in the city.
Yeah.
They explained to us that the tram, was used for tourists, but also a lot by the locals. So to have all those system down or those travel options down had impacted the city quite a lot.
Yeah, because it was really quite hilly in those sections, and people use those tram systems to go up and down the hill rather than walk up and down very steep, lengthy flights of stairs. And we stopped in front of kind of where it happened, and there was all types of memorials and flowers and kind of people just there paying their respect. So really quite an event for that city. And we had a tour guide that day, and you could tell she was really emotional talking about it. And
Yeah.
I think it impacted her particularly, and I think everyone in the city. It was a really tragic event.
Yeah. So
But just to jump back in a
yeah,
little
go
bit
ahead.
with Lisbon, I'm kind of a fan of architecture and buildings, and Lisbon had some really nice buildings with great architecture and tile, and just sort of beautiful buildings to look at. Historic buildings that were sort of maybe converted to something else now, but they still had that beautiful old facade. So, and that's true of a lot of European cities, but Lisbon has some really nice buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. We for this trip we opted to do a tuk-tuk in each of the regions we visited. We usually do a bike tour, but my mobility was a bit affected this time, so we did a tuk-tuk, which was really neat. And then on our last day in Lisbon, we decided to do a tour in the outskirts of town. We actually went to Peña Palace, which is the legacy of King Ferdinand. Ferdinand had married Queen Maria, and he wanted to show his love for her by building this beautiful palace. Sadly, she never got to live in it because she died in childbirth before it was finished. So the palace sits on top of the village of Sintra, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Um, and I mean, King Ferdinand was a real artist, and the details and the design of that palace was like breathtaking. I mean, the we went early in the day to avoid the larger crowds, which was good, and the climb up to the palace almost killed me. But once we were there, the view and just the palace itself was amazing.
Yeah, kind of going back to architecture, like we were
Yeah,
talking about earlier, and King Ferdinand, he was also like an artist, and he designed the palace to pay homage to different parts of Portuguese culture and influence. So there was a section that was kind of more Arabic. There was a section of the palace that was more kind of Indian style. There was, of course, Portuguese design, but really a kind of neat blend and. I think I took something like 200 photos just in that site alone. It was just spectacular. Just so much history and just really like artistic. Everything was art in that place. Just
yes.
and of course there was all these beautiful rooms, really like museum quality pieces throughout the palace as you walk through these rooms. And we had a very knowledgeable guide who really explained so much of the history of it, and it was really educational, but also just beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that palace tour. So after the palace tour, we went into the city or the village of Sintra. Sintra was once a summer retreat for the Portuguese nobility and royalty. And aside from that palace, they also have the Montserrat Palace and Castelo de Muros. So there's lots to see in that area. We didn't have a lot of time in Sintra, but we strolled around in the shops, sat down for a meal, had a drink, and off we went to the next stop. So on this tour, we also stopped in Cape Roca, which is actually the westernmost point in Europe. I would say, it was a smaller version of Peggy's Cove. Very nice. It was interesting. And then the last stop was Qashqai. I'm trying to pronounce it like they do, but same thing here. We had about an hour and a half here. Not a lot of time, but still, we did the same thing. It was kind of in the old town section. Had another drink and meal and probably an ice cream here.
Yeah.
And just the cobblestone architecture in this place was amazing.
Yeah, and so much history too. On our way back, the driver and tour guide told us about a hotel and a casino that we passed in front, which was apparently during World War II, a place where sort of spies gathered, and Ian Fleming, who was the author of the James Bond novels, which became famous movies, he used to hang out there and sort of mingle with. He was a spy apparently, and he used to hang out there and sort of mingle with the people. And some people believe that's where a lot of the inspiration for his James Bond books evolved and came from originally. And of course, there's also some James Bond James Bond movies filmed in that area, particularly some of the drives where they're riding on the coastline in those. Can't remember what type of car it was, but it was a convertible car, and James Bond is riding along. So really historical place.
Yeah, and the drive back was I really enjoyed that part. Like, we were along the coast, we'd see all the beaches, all the houses, and they were expensive houses. So I enjoyed that part just to kind of finish off the day. So after this, we were heading south. The Algarve region is what they call the south, or most of it. And we had decided to stay in Albufeira. It simply because it was the kind of the center of the south, and we wanted to see both sides. So just to give you an idea, Albufeira has about 45,000 population, so very small. And it also has an old town and a new town. We got to see both. When we got there, we did another tuk-tuk. Um, and we got the sense that in certain times of the year, summer, spring breaks, when there's a lot of action going on. So we weren't there late at night, but you could all already imagine what it looks like in terms of vibe. Later in the evenings at certain points during the year. So what we did, we decided to spend the rest of our evening in Old Town, just strolling around, and just the scenery was just great.
Yeah, another beautiful section. Just so nice to just walk around, stop for a coffee, stop for an espresso. Espresso was so amazing in Portugal. Pastry, I think I had a pastel de nata there at one point too as well. And yeah, just really nice place. And for those of you who are wondering, a tuk-tuk tour, a tuk-tuk it's kind of like a souped up golf cart
Yeah,
that's sometimes electrified, sometimes not. It's a gas engine, but it's kind of neat. You can be three or four people, or maybe even six, but quite often it's just you and the tour guide. So it's a great way to sort of see the city, and you can go to places that you wouldn't be able to go on foot unless you had a lot of time, or just kind of you can zip in and zip out a little back alleyway. So kind of a neat way to see the
yeah.
city.
Yeah, it gives you kind of an overview, a quick overview, and then you kind of decide where you want to go after that, which is what we did.
Yeah.
So the next day we took an Uber to Praia de Marina, and Praia means beach, and we hike the prettiest part of the Seven Hanging Valleys Trail. Essentially, you're walking on top of seaside
Yeah.
formations and rocks, and it was absolutely stunning. We did stop at the Benagil Caves and Beach just because like I said, I was limited a bit. And so that was as far as we wanted to go. It was very, very hot that morning. I can't imagine people doing the hike in the summer, but it was breathtaking, like beautiful scenery.
Yeah, it was just amazing. That was probably one of like the nicest hikes I've ever done. Just so beautiful. You're walking on these cliffs and there's the ocean and you can see some of the fishing boats off in the distance and the sun and the beautiful blue sky. And just like Kevin mentioned, those beautiful rock formations with these arches, and sort of you can hear the water crashing. And there's these sort of spouts where you can kind of lean over and look in, and you see the water right sort of underneath you. Just beautiful hiking, and the trail is kind of meandering and kind of up and down. So yeah, I think we walked about an hour and a half one way, then stopped for a bit of refreshments, and then turn around and walk back. But beautiful hike. Yeah, it's worthwhile if you ever get a chance to go in that area. Strongly recommended to do that hike. And like we did, you don't need to do it all. You can just go for a stroll and come back, turn around when you're ready. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, the only thing I would not recommend is do not go there unless you have really good footwear.
Yeah, yeah. And bring water.
And water, exactly.
Yeah.
So for that time, we were on top of the rocks and the caves. And then later on in the day, we had decided to do a boat tour that totally gave us a different point of view of the
Mhm.
caves and the rocks. So it was called the Caves and Dolphin Search. We had to search for a long time for the dolphins. They weren't overly friendly that day, but we did see a couple. And then once you did that, you'd come back and you would pass by all the beaches and the caves, and you'd kind of go to the entrance of the caves. And I'm not sure which view was better. I think I preferred the view from the boat, to be honest, but just very different.
Yeah, I think that's another part where I took, I'm sure, 200 photos of all those caves. You'd kind of go into the boat and be there, and it's so beautiful. And but it was also very busy. There was lots of people doing the same thing as we were doing, but there was also another sort of crowd doing that in kayaks, which would have been very cool as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so beautiful. Just I mean, we're trying to describe it, but you can't describe it
No.
until you've been there and seen it. And yeah, so just an amazing part of the world, that whole coastline there. I mean, we've got beautiful shores here in Atlantic Canada with beautiful rocks and beautiful beaches, but this is it's another level. It's just so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hard to describe.
Yeah, and I was a little bit hesitant about the boat tours. Like we do a lot of cruises, I have no issues, but sometimes on the smaller ships, or not the ships, but smaller boats, I get a little, you know, a weird feeling. So I was a little bit nervous, but this boat, it was more like a roller coaster. It was going so fast, you could barely feel the waves, only the speed. So I was fine, although the girl in front of us was
Yeah,
sick. But
felt bad for her. Yeah.
yeah, I felt bad for her as well. But anyway, I was glad that I was able to handle the smaller boat. Um, so our last day in the south, we actually decided to do a private tour of Lagos. We used the tours by local website, which was something somewhat new to me. And we got to see another part of the south, which would be on the west of where we were. So Lagos, the vibe that we got when we were there, it was probably like we would probably stay there if we were back in Portugal for a
Yeah.
longer period of time. Just the vibe was very chill. There was beautiful hiking trails there as well. The old town was, I mean, all the European cities have old towns. You hear us talk about that all the time, but there are different kind of, I don't know how to just say, but I don't want to say different quality of old towns, but this one was in particular very nice. So we absolutely loved Lagos, and would
Yeah.
definitely go back.
Yeah, I think Albufeira was more of a kind of party town where young people go in the summer and or in the tourist season, and they kind of go there and party. Whereas Lagos is more kind of like kind of laid back, not as much of a party town. Yeah, but you can still have fun, but it's not sort of geared. There's not like this whole street full of like big kind of boom bars. But yeah, really beautiful city. Just beautiful cafes, good restaurants. I think we had some crepes there that were delicious. And yeah, just a nice walking city. Just walking around. It's again, there's a coastline and like a beautiful trail all along the coast, and just beautiful. Yeah, it's Yeah, just awesome.
Yeah. So the last part of our trip, we took the train again. We really liked the train. Yeah, I don't have to worry about driving, finding parking, fear of getting the car stolen or broken into. We get on the train and we just relax and read or do things on our iPad or whatever. So it's part of the experience for us. We love the train experience in Europe. And the next stop was in Porto, which is more in the north. Porto has a population of 240,000 in the city, but the metro area has 1.8 million. I will say honestly, though, I felt like the city was the perfect size. It didn't feel too big or too small. Um, Again, felt completely safe walking around. Um, and it had a different vibe
Yeah.
than Lisbon.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. I think although Lisbon was great, really liked it. I think I like Porto better. I think it although it's touristy, it felt a little bit less touristy and a bit more
Yeah.
kind of historic. A lot of old buildings that haven't been kind of like, modernized or, become tourist places yet. So, really nice, super nice people, really very friendly. You could ask people for help or directions and they'd be right there with you. As long, you can say a few words in Portuguese, but you could get by in English. Yeah, just a really scenic city, beautiful buildings, beautiful tile work. Again, beautiful cobblestones. Our hotel was on a kind of walking street. During parts of the day, it became a walking street, and just it was so pleasant, just kind of strolling down and stopping for an espresso, stopping for a drink, stopping for a pastry. Just really, really nice, just beautiful, and yeah, so many historic buildings, and yeah, we really enjoyed Porto. I'd go there again.
Yeah. So Porto is called the city of bridges because it has six different bridges. And you have the Douro River that divides Porto from Gaia. So the river area is just beautiful. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I'll talk first about we did another tuk tuk here to get us familiarized with the city. And then on the second day, we visited Livrario Lello. It's an 18th century bookstore. And apparently, it was an inspiration behind some of the famous Hogwarts scenery in Harry Potter, although J.K. Rowling kind of denies it. But it's one of the most beautiful bookstores in the
Yeah.
world, with a central wooden staircase and stained glass. You actually need a ticket to go in. So you buy a ticket and it's in 15 minutes. And the place is so packed, you can hardly move in there.
Right.
I was a bit paranoid, I will say, because I almost felt like the second floor would collapse because of all the people. But you'd move like an inch at a time trying to get to where you wanted to go. A lot of people taking pictures, but a beautiful bookstore.
Yeah, it's worth the experience if you ever go to Porto. I think that's kind of one of the must-do places. It's just so kind of neat, and the bookshelves are all kind of like these super tall pane glass windows, and they got all these old classic books that you can buy. And but it's just a neat kind of experience. And J.K. Rowling's was a teacher in Porto for uh, a few years. I can't remember the exact number. So like, yeah, a lot of the inspirations for her Harry Potter books, like the uniforms that they wore. We actually saw some students in Porto who had similar type of garb, these long black coats with a color of black and white, and apparently that was kind of the inspiration for some of her uh, sort of get-ups in the Harry Potter novels. So again, a history with just so much history, the
Yeah.
churches, yeah, just amazing.
Another thing we did in Porto was we went to it wasn't a very long show. It was called Spiritus.
Oh yeah, that
It
was
was
fun. Yeah,
inside a church and it was all about lights and music. And it was almost like the how do you say that inside the church, like the statues inside this church
mm.
would almost come to life because of the
The
lights
light
on
show,
them. And
strobe lights,
yeah,
and
it was
changing colors
very,
and
very
patterns.
neat. Yeah. Um, Now, the last thing we did in an organized fashion, if you will, was we did a boat tour on the Douro River, which had wine tasting. We were with, I think, three other couples, two from Scotland, no, one from Scotland and two from England. And that was very, very nice. Once we actually found the place,
Yeah.
we really enjoyed this. It was a beautiful evening. The sun was just perfect, and it was such a nice event, if you will.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like we steamed or rode up the Douro River, and Douro means difficult or hard, and it was named that because it used to be very difficult to navigate because of the currents and the rocks. But that's kind of been changed over the centuries a little bit, but it kept the name. And yeah, so we cruised up. We went through all the seven bridges and kind of turned around. And of course, there was a sort of a tour person there who was telling us the history of some of the buildings and the difference between Gaia and Porto. And sort of on the way back, it was a full moon that night, I think, so you could see the full moon kind of just rising. It was just so scenic and just so beautiful. And yeah, I
Yeah,
met some really interesting people who had some great stories to talk about. And actually, the couple from Scotland, I think, they were getting ready to move to Portugal. They loved it so much, and I think they were close to retirement or I can't remember their exact story, but yeah,
yeah,
they wanted to move to Portugal. Of course, being EU citizens, it was relatively straightforward for them with an EU passport. So
yeah.
they loved Portugal and they really wanted to live there and relocate. So quite interesting to hear that.
Yeah. I will talk a little bit about the Lisbon airport. For those of
Oh
you
yeah, yeah. Oh
going
God.
to Portugal and be flying in and out of Lisbon, make sure you give yourselves lots of time. We were there 3 hours ahead, and we thought we were going to miss our flight. It's a very odd airport. Very chaotic, I will say. Not experienced. We travel a lot, and we've not experienced this before. But anyway, there were like five or six security steps, and you didn't know that the next one was coming. So if you stop to have a coffee or a breakfast before your flight, you were essentially looking for trouble. And we saw a lot of people like essentially
Running.
missing their flight. So just be careful of that if you do go. Overall, I will say we loved Portugal. It's a beautiful country. Everybody was very friendly. The food, the wine, it's very easy to get around, and we felt safe in that country.
Yeah, I think before we went, all over the years, we've always heard people say, "Oh, Portugal, we loved it. We went. It was so great." And you sort of, put that in the back of your mind. And then once we finally got to go there, it was kind of, it's all true. It's a beautiful place to visit. It's a great country to travel around in. It's easy to navigate. The train system is amazing. Uber is so fast for the most part. And they're great walking cities as well. Porto and Lisbon, you can easily get around and walk. Although they're big cities, the core is kind of very central. And if you're into walking, you can do so much. And I mean, we didn't even, get to go to art galleries and museums, which is one of my favorite things. But we'll save that for the next trip.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, beautiful. Portugal is, high on our go back to list.
Yeah, for sure. So if you are interested in it's on your bucket list, please reach out to myself or another of our Viva advisor to plan your trip. There are so many ways to visit. You could do a river cruise, an ocean cruise, a land tour, or you can do it like we did on our own. There's so many ways to visit. And I guess that's it for now. I will say Obrigada Portugal. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.